Well, welcome to the Composable DXP with Uniform Bootcamp course. I am Marcelo Lewin, the Headless Creator. As always, right there, get a hold of me, Marcelo at headlesscreator.com. In today's lesson, the very first lesson of this bootcamp, Introduction to DXP, we're going to define the digital experience platform. And you can find this lesson on demand later under the foundation section of this bootcamp. And we're going to talk about DXP, what it is, the history behind it, what does it mean to be truly composable, and we're going to cover basic terminology. But before we get started, you know how this works. I'm going to tell you real quick about headlesscreator.com. Go get your free account. Getting your free account, you'll have access to this lesson on demand, but then you'll have access to the entire course. And you can see we have a bunch of lessons coming up, many of them. And on top of that, you'll have access to the Content Modeling Weekly, the Discover Headless Tech, a bunch of Headless CMS courses, another bootcamp focused on personalization, a lot of stuff. So get your free account. It won't hurt, and you're going to learn a lot of stuff. All right, and you just go to headlesscreator.com and click on sign up. Having said that, you know how this works. For those of you that attend every week, I'm going to restart the intro because the intro won't have any I'm going to restart the intro because the on-demand version won't have any marketing whatsoever. So I will see you in just 10 seconds. Well, welcome to the Composable DXP with Uniform Bootcamp course, lesson number 1, Intro to DXP, Defining the Digital Experience Platform, presented by Tim Benix. He's the Principal Developer Advocate at Uniform. If you want to learn more about him, just watch the interview in the introduction section of this course on headlesscreator.com. All right, let's bring on Tim. Tim,
Hello.
welcome. I'm going to let you get started. If any of you have any questions, you have a comment, put them in there and we'll ask Tim. Otherwise, Tim, it's all yours.
All righty then. Thank you for that lovely intro, Marcelo. Let's get this going. So we're talking about DXP today. So an intro to DXP, and we're going to be trying to define the digital experience platform. And as Marcelo said, this is part of a bootcamp, and this is lesson number 1. So bear with me while we go through this. And then I would love it if you enjoy this content. Feel free to look at all the rest. Okay. Let's get this going, and let's get started by having a look at what Gartner has to say about the DXP, because Gartner is one of the huge players to help us to define our space, basically. And so they say a digital experience platform is an integrated set of core technologies that support the composition, management, delivery, and optimization of contextualized digital experiences. Phew. That says a lot, and they actually scope it extremely wide here. And that actually makes it very interesting, but also you can really interpret it in different ways. And DXPs can be huge or they can be very, very small, right? If it's my personal website, I have a couple of things that have a compositional like thing where I have different technical things together. That is my kind of my experience as a digital person. But you can also have a look at, let's say, Amazon or Google that have huge ones. And so if you step away a little bit from this relatively complicated sentence, how I generally explain it is that a DXP is the digital output of you as a brand. So it's you as a person, or you as I am a brand and I need something digital. And everything that touches is part of your DXP. And so if you have a look at the next slide here, and basically there's a bunch of technical things that together form this platform. And so it's not just your CMS. It's also things like commerce or search or your front end or your analytics or your digital asset management or many, many more things that you might use. Maybe you have an address book finder, or you have a wish listing system, or many, many systems that work together to do what you need as your brand in the digital space. That's what's in there, right? But what a lot of people don't actually consider or think about is that it's not only technical things that make your digital endeavor successful. You also have the practitioner side. And by practitioner, I mean people who can be maybe the developers or the content editors or the marketers. And of course, we have the end user that you can even see in bold here. And so it's not just the end user, and it's not just the technical things that we have on our previous slide. It's actually a combination of all these things. And what we've learned over the years, if the team that is working in this digital space with your for your brand is happy, the technology is good, you work together, and then the path to success is open. You just have to walk it. And so there's not as many roadblocks then if that all works. But does it? Not all the time. And this is part also about of this boot camp where you will learn where I work at Uniform. Here you go. Where we help with that, but not for this lesson. So let's talk a little bit about the history that is surrounding this DXP, because it wasn't always a thing. It's been around for a while, but when we started all this, we have something like that Forrester, which is a similar group to Gartner. They called this the web CMS. And you can see that the practitioner side is actually only web CMS. And then the technical side is everything else, from administration to localize or globalization things to templates and components. How everything works, it's fully technical. And it's basically on premises hosted. So you can see this as I have a server in my basement with an internet connection, and that's where my website lives. I'm just connected to the internet, and you can visit my computer and see the website. And also, back in the day when this came up, there were, of course, companies that made this kind of software. And so you could license it and then install that stuff on your computer or on something in a server farm somewhere if that already existed. And so this is very static. It's completely technology driven. And I think maybe when I got started about 15 years ago, this was still there, but it was kind of dying. So I'm just too young to have really used this. And then when we continue, something shifted, right? We went to something we call the experience CMS, where practitioners just wanted to do more. So the software kind of changed from you have to do everything in code and you have to click everything together and know everything to much more. This software gives you what you see is what you get. And we will combine things like content and commerce, and we will help you with your marketing and optimization and testing and personalization. And generally, these systems were also hosted, but they were managed hosting. And so when things like Rackspace came up and other like server farm related companies, this is where these systems would live. And they would be managed by other people for you. So you would actually pay them a license to host it. And there's still lots of crossover between Web CMS and this Experience CMS, where certain things were working on premise, others were managed. So it's kind of a mix here. And we're talking 2012, 2013. And then it's where headless CMSs or headless systems came up. And this is probably 2015, 2016, like when Contentful got started. There were some early players there. And this is a very different world, right? Where it's fully technical again. You do have a user interface to get this content there, but nothing more. What comes out is actually a REST APIs like JSON, or maybe we had XML, right? And you have to use XSLT to do some stuff back in the day. Or we had GraphQL, a little bit more recent. And so this is quite different, where companies said, okay, our output is going to be structured data, and we're going to give you an SDK for your mobile device or for your programming language. In this case, I wrote down JavaScript, but it could also be a PHP SDK or whatever, to actually query our system and build something with it. And these systems are generally cloud native as well. And we know of some that are still around, where if you want to set up a new environment for your CMS, that they actually have to do some work. So it's a little bit managed, but then in the cloud, it's not scaffolding itself, but it's all technical, right? And you see now that lots of these headless CMSs are like, okay, we need to do something to make the developers and the content editors both happy. So we'll make you like a really good preview or some small things like that that slowly come on top. And then this happened. And this is not what lots of people anticipated. And so basically the experienced CMS vendors that were building this suite with everything in it, they just kind of decided to rebrand themselves to, we are a digital experience platform because we have everything already. And let's just add a bit of headless on top of it. Right. And this is started to happen around 2018, 2019. And there's lots of players in this field that finally are like, okay, but we are not just a headless CMS. We are a CMS with many more things. And we are actually already a full platform, a suite. And let's add a bit of headless connectivity. We might not get a full API coverage of everything we do, but kind of. So you can build a website, but we can still feel like what you see is what you get. So you have all these kind of hybrid systems coming up. And so we just spanned about 20 years in a very short time. So if you have any questions, or maybe you have some relevant experience, feel free to share, because I'd love to hear your experiences in this field. So now let's have a look at where we are today and what we see happening. So within this, around headless CMS to this DXP rebrand of Experience CMS, we started to see things like this, right? So this is that suite. So in this slide, you can see this is basically like, yeah, thank you, Marcelo. If you can maybe put my video. Yeah, there we go. So we can see. So there's the suite. Everything is connected in one box, and you can see there's actually little locks there. So they're all connected. And then over time, and we're talking a few years back now, is that, okay, you can keep your system, but us front-end developers, we just want our own front-end. We don't want vendor lock-in. We don't want roadmap control. We want to build our own front-ends because we're better at that. Because if you can imagine, if you're a vendor that builds everything, you cannot excel at everything. You can be decent, but not super, super, super awesome. And these front-enders, they needed that. And so with this, the full stack developer came along as well, because we needed APIs on top of that suite. We needed our own hosting in the cloud, and then figuring out how this all worked. And then this is much closer, where only the CMS remains. And then everything else is basically just bolted on the way we want it. And you can probably imagine that suite is no longer that important anymore, because when you looked at the suite before, that there was the CMS was kind of the base, right? And everything was built on top. But now you can see it's actually a puzzle piece farther away. And so let's talk about right now, or yesterday, or tomorrow. Where are we?
So real quick on that. So basically,
sure.
At the end of the day, the where we are today, or where we're trying to get to finally, is to have every piece, everything be completely composable, right? Whereas the CMS is just like you said, just another piece. There's no more suites.
Exactly.
And I'm sure you're going to talk about why the positives and negatives of suites and stuff. So we're not going to get into that, right?
Yes, we will.
Right. Yeah. Right now, but that's where we're trying to get at, right? It's not having a suite that has everything, and you can add a couple of pieces. It's where everything becomes truly composable, like bricks, like
well, look
Lego
at the
pieces.
We're showing Legos now, right?
Right. Exactly.
And that's the bit of the interesting thing, because if you look at these suites, they are also a DXP, right? Because suites probably fit for a lot of people. We'll talk about that in a sec, the differences and stuff. And so